Last year, I tried a minimalist wardrobe challenge called the Rule of Five that went viral a while back. And after following that rule for 12 months, not only did I end up buying over 90% fewer clothes than the average woman, but it also forced me to face a few uncomfortable truths about my closet, my shopping habits, and the lies we're being sold about our personal style. Because when you stop buying clothes you don't need, everything changes. And that's why in today's video, I'm sharing what I learned when I challenged myself to stop buying clothes for an entire year and why I think that you should do the same. Hi there, friend, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marissa, and this is A to Zen Life, where I share all of the best tips and ideas to help you simplify your way to a happier, richer, and better life. So if that sounds like your jam, be sure and hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications if you haven't already. And let's kick things off with a statistic. Did you know that the average American woman buys 68 new items of clothing per year? Or what about the fact that we currently have enough clothes on the planet right now to clothe the next 6 generations of humans, even if we never make a single new item of clothing ever again? I don't know about you, but I was shocked when I read those statistics over a year ago because it made me realize how much we've normalized overconsumption of clothing nowadays to the point where a massive pile of discarded fast fashion can now be seen from outer space in the desert of Chile.
Can you guess what that is? That is the mountain of clothes in Chile's Atacama Desert that is so big it can be seen from space. And it consists almost entirely of unsold and secondhand fast fashion clothes.
As humans, I think that we should be ashamed that we're just letting our bad habits hang out all over the universe for the aliens to see. What are we doing? So when I came across an article about something called the Rule of Five for buying new clothes and how it can act as a guideline to be more sustainable and intentional with our clothing consumption, I decided to challenge myself to follow that rule for an entire year. But before I share the results and how the Rule of Five changed my life, let me first explain what this rule is. So the Rule of Five is based on a report that was published back in 2022 by a Berlin-based think tank called the Hot and Cool Institute as a guideline for more sustainable fashion consumption. And the idea behind this rule is simple but powerful, which is that in order to meet our CO2 emissions goals, each of us should limit our purchase of new clothing to 5 or fewer items per year. So the Rule of Five applies to new purchases of items like clothing, handbags, hats, and shoes. But there are certain things that don't count under the umbrella Rule of Five, like replacing essentials such as undergarments or worn out socks, for example. And along with reducing consumption of new clothing, sustainable habits are also encouraged, such as buying secondhand or pre-loved clothing or shoes, borrowing, renting, or swapping clothing instead of purchasing new items, and repairing or altering the clothes you already own. And I will be sure to link to the actual report down in the description box below in case you're interested in checking it out and educating yourself more about this topic. But I personally loved doing this 1-year challenge, and I think that everyone should try to follow this rule at least once because it's not just good for the environment, but it's good for us on a personal level as well. And here's why. Considering the average woman spends almost 400 hours and up to $2,000 on clothing, shoes, and accessory shopping each year, cutting back on how often you shop by 25%, 50%, or even more could potentially save you a huge amount of time and money. But beyond the time and financial aspect, the benefits also go much deeper than that. A lot of women, and I say this with love and as a woman myself, buy clothes for status or to exude confidence or to try to move towards some aspirational or next level version of themselves. We buy blazers because they make us feel powerful. We buy milkmaid dresses because they signal we're youthful and stylish. And we buy Chanel handbags because they're a status symbol that screams to the world, I've made it. But the problem with this is that when we perceive our value and our confidence as being dependent on what we're wearing, we're quietly handing over our self-worth to our wardrobe and other people's opinions. This has even been explored in psychology, and in the past, psychologist Carl Jung viewed clothing as a primary tool for constructing the social facade that we wear to navigate society, which acts as an interface between our inner self and the external world. Jung called this the persona, which is kind of like the mask that we wear to gain approval in society. But when we start judging our self-worth based on the reflection that we see of ourselves in other people's eyes, what we're doing is outsourcing our values and identity to the whims of someone or something else. One of the things that I've learned along my 10-year minimalism journey, in which I got rid of over 90% of my stuff, is that a smaller wardrobe, along with a slower and more mindful approach to shopping, is so much better for us both inside and out. A simplified wardrobe and intentional shopping habits reduces peer pressure and comparison, and I've also found that it lowers decision fatigue and the overwhelming paradox of feeling like you have too many clothes but also simultaneously nothing to wear. It's also been great for my self-esteem, and nowadays when I put on my clothes or I go shopping for clothes, instead of asking myself questions like, are these clothes flattering on me, and caring about what's trending, I started asking myself questions like, do I feel like myself when I'm wearing this? And for me, that shift from external validation to internal alignment has been incredibly freeing. And along with the previous points, I'd also like to mention that buying fewer clothes also reduces the inflow of stuff into your home. And if you pair the rule of 5 with a few good old-fashioned wardrobe declutters, you'll experience even less decision fatigue when you need to get dressed, and your closet will probably start to feel a whole lot less chaotic and overwhelming. I actually did a deep dive into this topic recently and shared why I think controlling the inflow of stuff into your home is one of the most underrated secrets to a home that always stays tidy and clutter-free. So I will be sure to link to that video up here for you and down in the description box below in case you're interested in checking it out. Okay, so now that we've gone through the background and the benefits of the rule of 5, I thought that we could dive into all of the clothes that I bought or acquired during last year's Low Buy Challenge, which in total amounted to 6 items of clothing. 2 items were purchased from the store brand new, 2 items were purchased from a thrift store, and 2 items were gifted to me by family members. So because the rule of 5 applies to new clothing, technically I was 3 clothing items below that threshold. However, I did acquire 4 additional pieces either through being gifted them or from the thrift store purchased secondhand. So I did go slightly over if you count it as 6 that way. But overall, I'm pleased with my first attempt at implementing the rule of 5 for clothing. So what I'd like to do now is dive into those items in a little bit more detail and share my thought process behind why I purchased them, as well as share another minimalist rule that I implemented during this challenge to keep the total items of clothing in my wardrobe at a balance and equilibrium. Also, I just wanted to mention that because I'm in the middle of a 30-day challenge to walk 10,000 steps every single day for 30 days, I am severely behind on the number of steps that I'm supposed to walk for today. So I figured, why not get out my walking pad and get some steps in while I was shooting the rest of this video and give you a little bit of a fashion show. So let's start things off with the 2 items that were purchased brand new, which include this white shirt and this pair of pants. I found these when I went shopping with my husband, who needed some new work clothes from Banana Republic, and he actually found this outfit and suggested it for me because I really suck at picking out nice clothes. And initially, I didn't even like it, but when I went to try it on, I thought it looked really, really good, and I knew that this white shirt would look really good with a lot of the other items in my wardrobe, like the overalls you saw earlier, and I paired it with a blue bird skirt that I've had for over 13 years now. So I am really happy that I added this piece to my wardrobe. I like how it's a little bit more form-fitting. And then I also really, really like these pants. I was iffy about the drawstring here at first, but as someone whose weight can fluctuate quite a bit, I found it really, really handy to either let in or let out, and also just really, really comfortable. It gives the feel of sweatpants, but still looks a little bit more put together. The next item of clothing is this blue flannel shirt that I thrifted from Goodwill. And the reason I went looking for a flannel shirt was because I have an old flannel shirt that I've had for, I think, almost a decade, if not more now, got holes in the armpits. And so I wanted to find another flannel shirt that I could use instead while I figured out if I could mend that or not. And my old flannel shirt was something that I wore all the time, so I knew that this would get a lot of use. One thing I realized while I was shopping for flannel clothing is that women's clothing is made so much more poorly than men's clothing. So I went through like 20 flannel shirts at Goodwill from the women's section, and I couldn't find a single one that either looked good on me, was a good color, was my size, and was a good fit, but also seemed that it was like quality fabric and stitching. And then I turned around and I saw this shirt in the men's section, and I absolutely loved it. And I saw that it was much better made, which means that it'll probably last a lot longer. So I've been really, really pleased with this flannel shirt purchase, and it really fits my sense of personal style, which I talked about in a recent video, and how Adam Sandler is one of my style icons. And I had a lot of comments on that video that were kind of hating on Adam Sandler, and even some puke face emojis that said they would never dress that way, which that's fine. Personal style is personal, right? So I don't care what other people think about the way that I dress, and I do my best not to judge other people on the way that they dress either. And if people were judging me for my fashion sense before, they're probably really going to judge me for this. But I found this pink bathrobe also at Goodwill, and it's made by a company that I'd never heard of before I found it, which is called Parachute. But this fabric is absolutely my dream fabric. It's so soft, it's so breathable, and I love the texture. So the minute I found it, I knew I had to have it, but I'm not a huge fan of the color. So I've been researching and trying to decide what color I want to dye it. And I think I've finally settled on a nice either moss or olive green, but I'm a bit afraid that it might turn brown, because if you put pink and green together, you're going to get brown based on the color wheel. So I'm thinking that I'm going to need to first remove the dye from the fabric as best as possible before I do that. So that's a project that I plan to show you in the future. And I also have to remove these loops at the side, but I didn't want to go through the pain of doing that until I was confident that I had the fabric in the color that I liked. And I have given myself permission that if I don't like the way that this turns out, I can go and buy a new one in the color that I like from their website, because I do absolutely love this piece. And then I would probably just dye this one black. But this is not for wear at home as a bathrobe. I mean, although I do kind of wear it like that sometimes. This specifically was bought for the purpose of being a cover-up, whether I'm inside or outside my home. Let's normalize going out in public in our bathrobes, shall we? Okay, right after I shot this, I came across this video of Adam Sandler getting filmed in public in his bathrobe, not once, but twice. So if that absolute icon feels like it's okay to be seen in public in his bathrobe, then I think it should be normalized for the rest of us as well. So I really love it. I love the length. I love the fabric. I love the texture, like I said. And I love that it's made of natural materials, which is something that I'm really focusing on putting my money towards this year. So what's not to love? That brings us to the items of clothing that I was gifted, the first of which is this gray sweater, which was given to me by my husband, Mr. Zen. And the reason he gave me this gray sweater was because he had previously given me another gray sweater of his that had gotten too small for him over the years. He had given that to me, and then I accidentally shrank it in the wash, which I was horrified, because I absolutely loved that sweater and I wanted and begged him for it for so long. And when he finally gave it to me, I ended up shrinking it. But it just so happened that he also had this gray sweater that he wasn't really wearing anymore. And so he was going to let go. And I saw that and I said, "Give it to me, please." And I was so excited to be able to replace that sweater that I had shrunk. We're doing really good, guys. We're at 4,500 and some steps now. So thanks for hanging in there with me on this one. The last freebie is this double layer cotton gauze, kind of caftan, I guess you would call it, that my Chinese sister-in-law gifted me last time when we were visiting my husband's family in Germany. And she was getting ready to get rid of this one. You can see that it's a little bit old. Here in particular, it's gotten a little bit worn out and the top layer of blue is starting to get thin. But when I saw it, I absolutely loved it. I loved the feel of it. I love the little detail in the sleeve that it's kind of like a gingham pattern, and it's so soft and so cozy. I knew it would be absolutely perfect for the freezing cold winters that we experience here in the Chicago suburbs. So this is yet another example of a freebie slash hand-me-down that perfectly fits my values and my lifestyle and my needs. The last thing I want to touch on is how many clothes I decluttered last year while I was doing this wardrobe challenge, using another minimalist rule that I've talked about many times on my channel, which is called the one in, one out rule. And this rule states that for every new item brought into your home, one item needs to be donated, sold, recycled, etc. And while I don't always follow this rule exactly, over the years, I found it to be very helpful in maintaining a balanced and clutter-free home. And it's especially useful for clothing. So here are all of the things I decluttered from my wardrobe last year. The first clothing item was a shibori tank top that I got around 10 years ago, and I bought it on sale at the time, even though it was several sizes too big for me because it was such a great deal I couldn't pass it up. But of course, it's never a good deal when you buy something that doesn't fit or is not comfortable for you. But I tried to make it work and even tried sewing it to fit my body better and be more comfortable. But after years of making excuses, I decided my clothes need to fit my body and my life and not the other way around. So I decided to finally bid it goodbye and let it go. The second item I got rid of was that gray sweater I mentioned earlier, which was given to me by my husband and that I accidentally shrunk in the wash. So I ended up donating that to a thrift store in the hopes that it might be a good fit for an older child or young teenager out there. I also decided to declutter 3 linen clothing items that I had purchased from an ethical clothing brand on Etsy around 3.5 years ago that were either too high maintenance due to wrinkling, or that didn't fit me the way that I hoped they would, or just were simply not my personal style, like with this pink skirt, which was a bit of a fantasy self purchase for me, but that I only ended up wearing a couple times. And two of these 3 linen items were gifted to my 20-something-year-old niece in Germany last time we went there because she's really into sustainable fashion and they fit and looked much better on her than they did me. And then, as for the sixth item, I also decided to let go of a Christmas tree pizza sweater that I had stopped wearing 2 years ago because I found that I just preferred to wear warmer and more comfortable clothing for the holidays versus wearing a seasonal sweater. Even though the sequins on it were really cute and I got a kick out of how it turned from a Christmas tree into a pizza and back again, I found that I just wasn't wearing it the past two Christmases, so I thanked the sweater for all the years of joy that it had brought me and sent it on to a new home. By the way, if you've made it this far, I would love to hear your thoughts about the rule of five and how many items of clothing you purchase each year, and whether or not you feel like the rule of five would be challenging or if it would be easy for you. So please drop me a comment down below to let me know. And if you're looking for more tips and ideas on how to save money, declutter your wardrobe, or simplify your home and life, be sure and go check out one of these videos that YouTube thinks that you'll like, or I'll see you next week. Until then, take care. Bye bye.